Hello again, and welcome to part 5 of my review for the Gossen Metrawatt Metrahit Ultra. This is the Bluetooth version of the meter. In the previous video, I'd asked if any of you viewers had recommendations on tests you'd like to see with this. One thing somebody had asked is remove the film, so there you go. Maybe it looks a little nicer to you now. Another thing that somebody had asked was if the static susceptibility had anything to do with leaving this rubber case on or not. Now, I don't believe it would, but let's just give that a try. So what he was talking about again was if we have this thing shorted, as you can see I just installed this jumper right across the inputs, and let's be clear about this. If I took even my Bryman and I don't have anything attached to the inputs, and I'll select this to the DC volt range, you can see how much this thing wanders. Of course, that's what's going to happen, you know. If you don't have anything attached to these high impedance inputs, of course it's going to read all over the place. Short it out and, you know, it's going to read 0. And that's going to be true for any high sensitivity meter like these. And again, we go into the highest sensitivity range, which has to be manually set. And if I move my hand along the side again, you can see that it has an effect. Of course, if I touch the meter, you can see the amplitude goes up quite a bit higher. It's just a piece of cloth that my wife had. What I'm going to do is just rub this across my hair. Try to get some static charge built up. I'm just going to bring this by the meter. Look at that. There you go. And for whatever reason, again, it seems to have more effect on the right hand side of the meter. Look at that. Alright, so the question is this a problem if the rubber boot is removed? Oh, I can feel some charge now. Oh yeah, look at that. There's 2 millivolts right there, 2.3. So yeah, it doesn't appear to have anything to do with the rubber boot being on there. And I guess that probably doesn't come as a big surprise to the physicists among you, but for the general hobbyist, this is a good thing to see. So yeah, whatever the problem is, I think we're just going to have to take the meter apart eventually and try to figure it out. Of course, one of the tests I had previously ran as well is I hooked up my ARB and I was trying to show how well the RMS to DC converter worked compared to other ones. And one of the things I had offered to do was to run custom waveforms. Another viewer had asked about actually putting a certain type of waveform. So I just showed him the format that I use, and he created a custom waveform. And then I loaded that into the ARB and played it back into all the meters. And I did a very short video of that. But if that's something that you're interested in trying, you're more than welcome to create your own files and upload them. It's just an ASCII text file. And I would be more than happy to run those tests for you. Another member was asking about turning off the RF link, and they were talking about the standby mode. Of course, this meter does support a standby mode, and the way that works is you go under the settings here, and then we have this standby mode here, and we can enable that. So we just hit enable or enter, and then turn it on and enter. And the way this works now is when I turn the meter off, you can see it's off, but in the upper right, this shows up with the camera right here, there's the IR symbol. So even though the meter is turned off, this is now in the standby mode. That would allow you to basically re-enable the meter through the IR link and turn it on remotely to start collecting your data. Of course, you can't do anything with the meter while it's in this mode. You know, it's in standby, or essentially a very low power mode, and it's just essentially waiting for an IR command to come across. Now this mode is not available for the Bluetooth, but if we go back in and if we change this to off, oops, And under con, or connection type, we can select this to Bluetooth. And then you can see the Bluetooth in the upper right. Of course, if I turn this off right now, you know, it's just going to shut off. And that's the way I was testing the meter inside of the Christmas cookie canister, is I basically turned the meter fully off, not in standby, and you can see there was basically no RF being emitted from the meter itself. We got a pretty good baseline, and then as soon as I turn the meter on, you see that 1.2 gigahertz. There doesn't appear to be a way to turn that off. Whether I'm in IR mode or Bluetooth, that 1.2 gig is always there. So if I go into setup again, and you can see there is no selection for standby. Again, it's not supported when it's in the Bluetooth mode. The only way you can do that, again, select the connection type, select IR, and then as we scroll through right here, IR standby. So there is no Bluetooth standby. But again, I'm not even sure if the RF link is necessarily the problem. I mean, until I tear this thing apart, I'm not going to know for sure. So hopefully that helps clear up what the standby mode is. So on the front of all these meters, again, I just have a small 50 ohm terminator. One thing I want to mention about this stupid meter, you notice how basically all the meters will have the comm jack on the left. For whatever reason, you notice on the Gossen, they put it on the right hand side. I'm telling you, that has screwed me up more times with this stupid meter. I'll be running a test and then I realize I have the leads plugged into the wrong connectors. You know, the industry has basically done a very good job training me that the comm jack is always on the left. And then these idiots come along and they put it on the right. You know, why? Why? But this is what I want to show you. This one is a Robbins Universal Magnetic Tape Eraser. Reel-to-reel cassette cartridges. What I'm going to do is sweep this by these meters and let's just see if there's any magnetic effects on these. So we'll start here with the UT181. Yeah, it's probably just holding the eraser by it. Of course, you know, if I put my hand by this meter, it'll kind of act up. Let's try it with the TPI. You know, make sure we get it in both directions. There's no effect. Let's try it with the Bryman BM869S. Nothing. Not very exciting. Now let's try it with the X-Tech EX540. Cheapest meter of the bunch here. Again, Ruby selling this thing for 120 bucks at one point. Unbelievable. Very solid. Let's just see what the Gossen Metrawatt has to offer us. Think this is going to have an effect? Well, yeah. Listen to that. So while it doesn't cause a problem with the reading, at least in this one, it'll actually activate the relays inside of the meter. You know, and I haven't traced out the circuitry that's in this thing, but I'm sure that those have something to do with the input switching. And boy, I hope to hell that those relays don't transfer the inputs in some way that you could actually blow up the meter or short it out or whatever by having some kind of magnetic field next to this thing. I mean, is it really the best choice to be putting relays into a handheld meter? It's not like I'm not going to have this thing around a magnetic field ever. You know, to me it just seems like a bad choice to have relays in a meter like this. But again, maybe it won't affect you. And maybe the static field won't affect you. And maybe the RF sensitivity won't affect you. You know, I don't know. To me, it all comes down to choice. If you think this is a good meter for your applications, go ahead and buy one. But if you think I'm done testing this, I'm not. We've got another test here that I want to run. This is one that I had been asked about from another member up on EEV blog a long time ago. He was pointing out that basically the Brymans had some problem that his Unities didn't have. So several of us, including myself, launched this series of tests where essentially what we're doing is we're applying an AC or a DC voltage, and then we're applying a heavy offset. So for example, I'll put in a small AC voltage, and then I'll raise the offset voltage of that and see if it affects the meter's AC voltage reading. And then I'll do the same thing where I apply a DC voltage, then I'll increase the AC amplitude that rides on top of that and see if it affects the DC reading. And basically every meter that I tested, not just the Brymans, are affected to some degree, except I have this very old HP 3468A that I bought brand new, I don't know, a long time ago. And that meter was not affected. I have a newer HP 34401A that I also bought brand new. That meter is affected by it. So let's just try that with this Metrahit, and we'll see what kind of an effect that has on this particular meter. Alright, you're not going to believe this, but I thought for sure I had just fried this meter. I haven't done really anything with it. You know, this test that I'm showing here, I'm only putting out, you can see about 350 millivolts AC. The only thing I had done was just the test that I had just shown you, and the meter was working fine before that. All I did was connect up the leads. I turned this thing on, and I was getting 30 millivolts. I swapped the leads. This thing was still displaying 30 millivolts. So I tried turning off the meter, turn it back on. It's still 30 millivolts. I mean, unreal. I was all ready to just call it quits and just tear the meter apart. All I did was I switched it to ohms, and then I switched it back, and the meter started working again. What I think had happened, maybe, is those may be like a latching relay. And what I'm wondering is when I hit this thing with that tape eraser, if that actually changed the state of the relay, and the meter doesn't have any kind of feedback to know that, and that it needs to reset it. So let's just see if I can get it to happen again. So I was in the DC. I was doing some sweeps on it. Various directions. And I connected up our source. This will be funny if this repeats. And I switched it over to the AC mode. Didn't do it this time. It's interesting though, when I put the switch to the AC plus DC mode, it was reading the right value. But it was not in this mode. God dang it. Oh, there's something to this. This thing's got a problem. Let me try some more tests here, and I'll see if I can figure out what's actually getting it into this mode. Check this out. This is exactly what the problem is. So when I hit that thing with that tape eraser, it does something with the relay, puts it into a state, and I'm probably 50-50 I guess with this. But look at this. What I'm going to do is just to show you there's nothing going on, I'll take the lead off of our Bryman, and I'm just going to swap these two. See that? Look at that. Is that crazy? That is fucking crazy. You could get somebody killed with this. Look. So this is just a standard outlet. Let's just move some of these out of the way. So there's 120 volts sitting here. It's basically right off the line. I've just got my Probe Master probes here. I'll just show you that this is live. So I'm going to attach it to our Bryman. You can see our batteries are dead. Anyway, so of course we're in the millivolt range. You can see 123 volts. Now this doesn't have like a millivolts AC mode, right? So it'll auto range for us, but I'm just going to attach our leads. And this thing before I think read like 4 volts. Look at that. 4.11. I mean, you could go, if this meter were in this mode, you walk up to an outlet or a bus bar, you hook this thing up and you think that you have some low voltage, and then you grab a hold of something. I mean, can you imagine that? So before, I could turn this thing off. And I'm going to turn it back on. Look at that. 3 volts. Unbelievable. You want to talk about a bug. Fuck. Yeah, these Germans know how to design a meter all right. Oh, and just so we try to repeat this the rest of the way, I'm just going to detach it from the line. And bring the other meters back up. And you can see the low voltage here. I think one thing I'm going to do, let's just see if we can get it to reset with this thing. Oh, right there. Right there you have it. The other way I reset the logic, like I say, if you turn it to the ohms, you can hear the relay cycle, then turn it back. So then it's going to start functioning. Yeah. Wow. That's just terrible. So you can see I have all 5 meters right now in parallel. They're attached to an AC source. You can see it's basically 60 hertz. And we're putting out roughly 0.7 volts right now. What I'm going to do is start to increase the DC offset voltage, and let's see how it affects these meters. So right now you can see I'm putting out roughly 100 millivolts, but you see how the X-Tech is behaving. You can see the bar graph on the Bryman is actually bouncing around. I have a fairly high amplitude AC sine wave right now superimposed on this. This is currently 4 volts peak to peak riding on top of this 100 millivolt signal. So yeah, it actually looks like this meter does pretty good with all the sweeping that I've done. I would say it's on par at least with what I've seen with most of the meters. I think if we were to force it into a, yeah, see like here, if I force the manual mode on this so it can't auto range, you know, it's not going to display an over range, but it does show it as 63 millivolts. But again, that's a fairly common problem with the meters. I'm not too surprised that it does this. It's been on every meter that I've looked at, again, except this old HP 3468A. I hate to be a cop-out, but I'm going to stop the video here and just see what you guys think about this problem that I'm seeing with the relay. You know, do you think that that's a concern? Maybe it'll give Gossen, I keep hoping that if I give Gossen enough time that they're actually going to respond to my original concerns about the static field in the RF. But this is like a whole new problem now with this relay being able to get set and no feedback. I'd really love to take it apart, but I keep thinking I would just really love to have their input on all this. But unfortunately, so far they have yet to write me back. It's pretty sad, really. For an $850 meter, I'm just surprised that their service is that bad. Well, I think that's going to be it for now. Again, sorry for the short video. I know you guys want to see this thing come apart. Believe me, I do too. it'll happen soon, so just be patient. Later.